Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I'm Myrna Loy of Blackbright News, which can be found at www.issue, which is issuu.com/Blackbright News. And I cover a lot of Black-centered topics. Today, I'm going to be talking about whether or not a Black person has the right to protect themselves. Now, the reason why I'm talking about this is because it seems as though when a Black person tries to exercise their rights or tries to protect themselves, they are always at a disadvantage. Unless, of course, it's against each other. Black on black, then they can exercise all the rights they want and, engage in self-defense. But let that situation be between a Black person and a white person. The system isn't fair in that scenario. And the reason why I say that is because I was sent a video which I'm going to share. And this is why I've come to this conclusion.
There is absolutely no reason why out on the street today
that's Ronald Reagan, of course.
A loaded weapon.
On May 2nd, 1967, 24 men and 6 women marched into the California State Capitol building in Sacramento. They were carrying pistols, shotguns, and rifles. But this was not a SWAT team or a security force, at least not a government one. In fact, this heavily armed group was more of a well-regulated militia. And they'd come to the Capitol that day to try to stop the legislature and the state's Republican governor from passing a law that would strip them of their ability to openly carry their weapons as they patrolled the streets of their neighborhoods in an effort to keep people safe.
They put trumped-up charges of conspiracy and felonies on everyone who went in to exercise a constitutional right and said they had no right to bear arms in a public place. The California Penal Code Section 12020 through 12027 and also the Second Amendment of the Constitution guarantees the citizen a right to bear arms on public property.
Now, it may come as a surprise to some of you, given today's discourse on guns, that the National Rifle Association and the Republican governor of California, Ronald Reagan, came out passionately in an effort to strip this militia's right to carry arms.
But I would think that some of the bills that have been suggested, such as not carrying a loaded weapon on a city street or in town, this might certainly be a good one.
Why was Ronald Reagan so up in arms? After all, California was an open carry state. These Americans were exercising their God-given Second Amendment rights. So what was the problem?
Am I under arrest? Take your hands off me if I'm not under arrest.
That militia that marched into the Capitol that day was the Black Panther Party. And the street patrols that they were engaged in were operations to protect their communities from the police and other government forces that had been targeting, abusing, and killing Black people.
The Black Panther Party for self-defense calls upon the American people in general and the Black people in particular to take full note of the racist California legislature, which is now considering legislation aimed at keeping the Black people disarmed and powerless at the very same time that racist police agencies throughout the country are intensifying the terror, brutality, murder, and repression of Black people.
California lawmakers were terrified. Some reportedly hid under their desks. The entire establishment, including the gun lobby, denounced these armed Black people. And the bill, which became known as the Panther Bill, was aimed at taking away what the NRA and the Republicans portrayed as their sacred rights as Americans. In fact, the Panthers in the Capitol that day were charged with felonies.
FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover today asserted that the Black Panthers represent the greatest internal threat to the nation. Hoover said the Panthers have perpetrated numerous assaults on police and have engaged in violent confrontations throughout the country.
The so-called Panther Bill made one thing abundantly clear. Having armed Black revolutionaries patrolling their neighborhoods with weapons was a greater threat than losing the right to openly carry weapons for everyone in California. In fact, this bill resulted in some of the strictest gun control laws anywhere in the United States. all because some black Americans exercised their right to carry loaded weapons. Now, around that same time...
Yeah, so that is the situation. Now, when Obama became president, gun sales rose. And why do you think that is? Well, from my perspective, I think it could only be because they saw a black president and they thought, oh my God, supposing he starts giving guns to black people, supposing he stops letting white people have access to guns. The reason why people say they want guns is for hunting or to protect themselves or protect their homes. So why is it that 80% of gun owners are white and the majority of them are black? The majority of them are men. Because the thing is that if guns are to protect yourself, why is it that the majority are owned by white people? Doesn't that put non-blacks, indigenous and blacks at an unfair disadvantage? Of course it does. Because that means the majority of people are walking around with guns and black people have got nothing to defend themselves with. And what is really annoying is that black people are constantly goaded, provoked, treated unfairly, and it's almost as though they want them to react. Black people are constantly being goaded to react. I mean, even remember with Whoopi Goldberg. I mean, well, I know that's probably not a good example, but when she reacted, did you see the reaction? When what's her name? Tessa Sanderson? No. Serena Williams. When she opened up her mouth, did you see the reaction about that? You know, they're women, so they got off lightly. But men, black men who try to stand their ground or try to speak up or do anything to protect themselves are shot down. And if they're not shot down with the gun, they're either imprisoned or shot down in some other way. So that black people are walking around thinking, oh, well, I better keep my mouth shut. I better not rock the boat. Because if I do, especially when they've got family, my family's going to suffer if I'm not around. So they go around dismissive and submissive with the same master mentality. And you know what pees me off is when people say, oh, why don't black people stand up? Why don't black people go out there and fight? Why don't black people do this? Why don't they? Because they're not stupid. They know what's waiting for them. The majority of them do. The young ones, they may not, they might be a bit more rebellious, but they probably are aware of their unfair advantage in a situation where they are at a disadvantage. Especially when you have unfair cops, you know, cops that are not there to protect and serve everyone and who have their own agenda when they take on that role. So it's not fair. I mean, guns are meant to be for hunting and protecting the home. So why isn't it 50-50? Why is it not 50% whites and 50% blacks that have guns? That's what I want to know. Well, I tell you something, it's a real eye-opener, and it's not nice to think that, you know, you're in a situation where you feel as though you have freedom of expression, you feel as though legislation is to work in everybody's favour, but we know it doesn't. Legislation is for the favoured. It's not for the unfavoured. So therefore, what can be done? How can we make the Second Amendment apply to everyone? How can we make the law apply to everyone? The only way that can happen is the mindset of the people. The people who go around, you know, with the mindset that they're afraid of black people and therefore they have to protect themselves against them. We have that situation where the guy outside the supermarket who was trying to protect his woman's space, and the white man felt threatened and shot him. We have Amber Geiger, who shot Botham Jean. He didn't even have a gun, but she felt threatened because he exercised his right of choice. I don't want you. I don't want to be with you anymore. As far as she's concerned, how dare you? How dare you reject a white woman? How dare you? Boof. He's shot. He's dead. 26-year-old. And any black person that dares challenge somebody with a gun, even if sometimes they don't even know that they've got a gun, but if you dare challenge and open up your mouth and speak your truth or say anything that is not perceived as being submissive, you're in trouble. You are in trouble. They stack things against you, they lie, they'll do anything to put you in your place. So no wonder black people walk around like bloody zombies just getting on with their lives. And that's probably not working to the white people's advantage. Those white people, I shouldn't say not all white people, because you've got good and bad everywhere. There's lots of white people who are great people. I've got white friends. I mean, I'm sure black people have got a lot of white friends. So this doesn't go out to all of them. This is, of course, going out to those people who have an unfair mind, who are biased, who are prejudiced, and for no reason. This is for them. Stop being afraid. Your history is not going to catch up with you. It's a universal thing if it does. It's karma if it does. But it's not going to, you don't have to shoot every black person on sight just because you think that they're going to shoot you first. It doesn't work like that. And you know it doesn't work like that. But for some reason, I think you think that if you get rid of all the black people, everything will be hunky-dory. It won't. So just try to get a grip and try to have a bit of sense and try to kind of think logically. Is the way I'm thinking justified? Why am I thinking in this way? What has made me think in this way? Have I got evidence apart from biased news? And, you know, the way, well, it's mostly the media, to be honest. But have I any evidence other than the news that tells me that I should be afraid? Have I any evidence apart from what happened in the past that I feel subconsciously guilty about, that I think somebody's going to get me because of it? What real evidence do you have for preventing black people from having an equal stance? That is what emancipation of slavery was meant to be about. That is what the equality laws are about. So why not put them in place? And you'll see the difference. Honestly, you'd probably be amazed. You'd probably be so surprised if you just give somebody a chance and not be afraid. And that's all I've got to say. Bye-bye for now.